Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. And this week we've got Jason Abrams, and we titled it Unplugged with Jason Abrams. We thought that'd be kind of cool, no, Paul?
Right? I mean, we're going to expect a little a cappella singing, some music. No, the reason that we think that's such a great title is Jason's done such a phenomenal job with Keller Williams in so many areas. And I think number one for me is just the communication of our message, right? So one of the things that that frankly I think we've struggled with is we've done a lot of things well, and yet communicating lots of important things like our value proposition, how our agents can do a better job with their clients by using Keller Williams tools, and just in fact just in the LA MLS being number one. I mean, I always feel like our competitors are doing a better job with communication, and the person I think does communication best at Keller Williams is Jason Abrams.
So, dude,
thanks for saying it, man. I appreciate it. Here's the problem, right? When you don't tell your stories, your competitor tells your stories for you. And in the absence of true leadership, people listen to whoever is speaking loudest at any given time. And if you're an agent, I think you have to ask yourself right now, who's speaking loudest to your data bank? If it isn't you, meaning if you're not becoming more likable to them on a minute-by-minute basis, then is it one of your competitors? And when I say your competitors, you instantly think of other real estate agents. And yeah, that's important. But it's also every single technology company that's working hard day in and day out to come in between you and your customer. And, you know, some of these companies are companies that you love. Like, I love Amazon. On the same token, I'm not under any illusion that they're not coming in between my customer and I if they decide to get into the real estate business. And did they get there by coming direct, or did they get there by going a bunch of other different ways and we ended up at the same place? Let's be real about this. Because we're connected to people's homes, and because the homes are the backdrop for people's lives, then the truth is there's a lot of industries that the home touches. We have to be really careful, Tristan and Paul, to make sure that we maintain our position standing next to the consumer, side by side at the center of the transaction. Because here's the thing. If the consumer is alone at the center of the transaction, then all sorts of shenanigans can happen. And I believe that everybody should get the best representation by a true fiduciary, which means we have to be side by side with them. The technologies that we're building at Keller Williams are not designed to replace agents. And if you think about it, there's all sorts of other companies that are talking about replacing you, meaning like they think people want to swipe right to buy a house. And the truth is right now you can swipe right to buy a lot of other things, right? And some of us don't mind doing it, but houses is a little different. And I truly believe that we have to look at it different. And then we have to say, are the things that we're building making us more human more often with more people? Do they make our ability to be likable by our cohorts magnified? That's what technology should do, right? It should amplify your superpower. And there's so many agents who, number one, I don't think they look up and they ask, what is my superpower that I want to amplify? Or number two, they don't know how to actually use the technology to amplify it. And Tristan, I think those are the problems we need to solve.
Well, dude, I think let's go deeper into the story, because I love what you said there. How would you suggest that Keller Williams agents tell a better story about, number one, about themselves and about Keller Williams as a whole? Because you and I see, I mean, all three of us see that there are other companies out there that are telling a story that's a good story. But when you look at it, I mean, it's hard to beat Keller Williams, and we're not doing a good job in some cases of telling that story. So help us.
Well, look, I would take the Pepsi challenge of every company that's out there. I think we're better than all of them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of great companies, but there's a reason that I'm carrying this flag. And I think you have to decide which part of our value proposition matches up with the story that you want to tell to your customer base. Let me tell you what I'm really clear on. I'm really clear that the power of Keller Williams isn't anything that happens necessarily in Austin, Texas, and isn't the code behind command. It's the agents' individual relationships with each one of their customers. That's the power of Keller Williams. You see, we're built on an idea that if it's our brand, it's never truly your business. The truth is, it should be your brand. The customer, and I'm under no illusion, if you go to decide to work at ABC Real Estate Company and you have deep relationships with your customers, they're all going with you. That's what I know to be true. And because I know that, I'm willing to embrace that, then my question every day has to be, how do I wake up and make your life easier? And your question every day is, how do I get more likable to my customer base? And if we both answer those questions, then our story gets told, not on a macro level, but on a micro level. Because the battle that is residential real estate is one that's always been based on trust. What I mean by that is when you start polling buyers and sellers, and you say, well, why did you use the agent that you were with? At the end of the day, in the top two always reasons, and it's usually number one, is I trusted them. And the consumer defines trust on number one, having market knowledge, number two, being a good person, and number three, helping them shepherd through the transaction to accomplish their goals. That's how they define it. But here's the thing, that trust doesn't exist because you send great looking emails, although that's important. It doesn't exist because you have a cool sign, although that's important. And it sure doesn't exist because there are national companies running some commercial on TV, or there's a postcard. All of those things are important, but trust is built when three things come together in a very specific order. If you think about it, and I always draw it as a triangle, Tristan, and on the top of that triangle has to be authenticity. And to me, this means that the consumer is experiencing the real you. Remember, we're in a people-to-people, knuckle-to-knuckle, belly-to-belly business, and you are going to be the brand. Then in the left-hand corner of the triangle over here, I put logic. This is to say that the consumer is going to have to understand that your logic stream works for what they're trying to accomplish in life. This, of course, is first understanding what it is they're trying to accomplish on their life's journey, and then what life events are currently coloring why they want to buy and sell real estate. And the truth is, if you don't have any sort of logic based with them, it's hard to trust you. And then the final point of the triangle is going to be apathy, meaning that the consumer has to believe that you care about them. And when apathy and logic come together and authenticity is there, that is the trust triangle. And I would defy you to think about any relationship that you have that maybe hasn't been working, and then ask the question, is it possible that it's because one of those pieces of the triangle has broken and it needs some repairing? And then I would ask you to look back on your life and any relationship that has ended for good. It's because one of those points was so broken that you no longer felt it was capable of repairing it. That's the only time people, A, leave relationships, and I'm going to talk about terms of real estate right now, or B, leave brokerage houses. See, when you say to me, what's the story is those three things as it relates to each individual consumer in your data bank. Because your company's culture isn't defined necessarily by one sentence. It's defined by each individual's view of that company and how that company then relates to them. So if I were to go around the country and interview 180,000 Keller Williams agents and say, how do you feel about our company's culture right now? I would get a variety of answers based on their unique life experience and what their needs are right now. And the question should be, are you meeting those needs? And if the answer is no, then the question should be, well, what steps have you taken to meet them? Because we have an infrastructure of KWU. We have an infrastructure of maps. We have an infrastructure of technology, both on the national, regional, and market center level. And I look up and say, anybody that really wants to be helped getting to wherever they want to go in life isn't short of people to help them get there. And that's, if you were ever going to ask, Paul, and I know I got on the soapbox, but what keeps me up at night? What keeps me up at night is asking the question of how many of the 180,000 people who I'm standing side by side with as real estate brothers and sisters know they need something that they're not getting and aren't asking for that help. Ask for it and not get it, different conversation. But suffer in silence. That was the opposite of why we ever started Keller Williams. The idea here was that there was going to be a better way to do it, that we were all going to share openly, and that we were going to connect the entire company through profit share. In that way, we would line up all of the dominoes such as that we all stopped being individual agents and we all became stakeholders in the company together. And once that happens, that cultural experience would be more of a social contract that said, I might not know you, but I'm still going to help you. And when those things live and breathe, that's why when I look up, and I don't ever speak ill of our competitors, I will say there's something that makes Keller Williams agents really special to me. And it's because you're not built, this company, on a business idea, although you write them for the whole industry. And you're not built on a share price or stock price or a technical idea. You're built on a culture. God, family, and business in a very specific order. And anybody could say those things, but they don't, but you guys do. And then you show up and you can go through the list, man. Any company could stop all business for a day and help and do landscaping and do everything else, but they don't, but you guys do. You call it Red Day. Any company could have tractor trailers full of emergency supplies and be first at natural disasters, but they don't, but you guys do because your culture dictates it. Any company could have a university. Any company could be writing the textbooks for the industry and then giving them to all different brands, and they don't do any of those things. And you do all of them. And then the industry looks up and they take those things for granted. And all of a sudden it's cool. Everybody gets to read Millionaire Real Estate Agent. You know why they get to read it? Because you all wrote it. And if I seem passionate to you, it's because of this. Anytime somebody says to me, how can we tell our story better? Here's the truth. Our story is the whole industry's story. You're the largest real estate company the world has ever known. You write the systems and models that all brands take for granted. 4 years ago, no one was talking about technology, and you moved the conversation for the entire industry to the point where you can't even get away from the discussion now, and you guys did that. The reason our story is a little bit difficult to tell is because we tell it on a scale that most people have never even dreamed. That's also what makes it most exciting, because I think we're at the infant stage of a movement, Paul and Tristan, and where we're headed is uncharted, because once you become number one in size and you become number one in sale and you become number one in scope, the question is what do you intend to do to stay there? And what's the point of being number one unless you're going to move an industry forward? This is why we're building out a consumer operating system in the consumer app. This is why we're building out the agent operating system in the command. This is why, instead of resting on laurels like all of the other companies that used to be number one, that ultimately become number two, number three, and number six, we have designs to stay right here and keep empowering the agent.
I love it. That is
That was a complete answer. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah,
that's what we call it. That's what we call it, Jason Abrams Unplugged. And I got to tell you, it's interesting when we interview all these people, and some of the time, not all the time, I'm furiously taking notes. And what amazes me is that what Jason's talking about is Keller Williams and is the Keller Williams story and communication of that message and the pieces that are built together to make that. And I've been around long enough that I've got that story in my head. And when Jason is telling it, I'm taking notes. So I've got great notes on this, just including, the three pieces, right? That the market knowledge, being trustworthy, and shepherding, being the shepherd through the transaction, right? These are the three pieces that Jason absolutely correctly identifies as what makes a difference to clients. Okay. So you all should write that down. If you haven't, that's okay. I'll put the notes up. And then inside of that, being trustworthy is authenticity, logic, and empathy.
And
so
that equation, by the way, when I speak to agents, and there's definitely nuanced differences between the way that you would represent a quote unquote luxury client and a quote unquote terrestrial client. We have all these words that serve us to segment people. The truth is, though, the challenge is the exact same across the entire spectrum, which is, can I, as the real estate agent, build enough confidence in the consumer that I'm the right person to shepherd them through the next movement? Like, that's the challenge for all of us. Once you agree that that's the central challenge, then you look up and say the tactics might be different based on the different socioeconomic levels of my customers and their real estate needs. What tactics do I have to apply such that I'm the next organic choice for them to make that decision with? Like, that's it. And that's the guiding logic, regardless of where you are in the country and where you are in price point. And the reason that people move, it hasn't changed ever since the dawn of time, right? I mean, they move because they have life events. right? They get a job, they lose a job, they get rich, they get poor, they have a kid, they become an empty nester, they find love, they get divorced. These are the life events that people have. No one moves because Tristan got a real estate license. No one's like, oh my gosh, Tristan got licensed, wasn't planning on moving, I'll do it now. Like, that doesn't happen. What happens is every single person you know is having these life events. And some of them precipitate a move. And then the question becomes is whether or not you're in emotional proximity with the consumer at that time, or it's the logical step for them to make that move for you. And truthfully, it's no different with a brokerage house. Like I'm speaking one language here, meaning that the reason that an agent would pick up and leave a real estate company is because they're having life events. Now, it's a different series of events that I just described for the consumer, but life events nonetheless. They ran out of listings, they ran out of energy, they ran out, and some of them are positive and some of them are negative. And the question that we have to ask is when we line up all of the life events that a realtor can have, how many of them can we improve in a very short period of time? And we improve them one of three ways, and usually in this order: systems and models, technology, and people. That's the order by which problems that are scalable get solved. So if you're at a point where you're having one of these real estate agent life events and you look up and something isn't working, here's the first question. Do you have the right models and systems, or are you at a place that has the right models and systems? Then number two, once you have the right model and system, what's the technology that you can put in to supercharge that model and system to either make you more money or give you more time? And then number three, what are the missing people in the equation for me? In some cases, it's going to be a coach. In other places, it's going to be a buyer's agent. In some places, it's going to be admin. But when you look up and then you say, well, gosh, if that's the way that problems are solved, and if all of us are organically going to hit these problems and we're going to call them life events, then the truth is I need to be at the place that has the best models and systems. Well, guys, you write them for the industry. I got to be at the place that has the best technology. Friends, you're building it. And I got to be at the place that has the right people. Friends, you have more people here at KW than any other real estate company on the planet. The truth is, I think you've hit the trifecta. The question I have is which one of those three things do you need to key more into to get the most out of the next 6 months of your life?
One of the again, taking notes, one of the things, and it's just from a piece that you said in the beginning, was that, and I ask, I'm glad you said it. I ask all the time, what's your superpower? I ask that to our leadership, and I ask that to the agents, because the upside of our upside is always going to be better than the upside of our downside. So figure out what is your superpower, right? And then amplify that and talk to your database and get that thing out front. And one of the things that Keller Williams has been doing with technology is you always hear about the tech-enabled agent, right? Versus the agent-enabled tech. And let me be clear, because I know Tristan and Jason, full on understand this, but I'd like Jason's take on how to communicate this, okay? The reason why Wall Street companies are interested in technology and real estate is not to empower realtors, okay? That's not where the big dough comes in. They look around and they say, hey, what industry is still run, face-to-face, hand-to-hand, and how can we disintermediate? And disintermediate is very simple. How do we get rid of the realtor, right, and go direct to consumer and take a big chunk of that pie? That's what's going to ring the Wall Street bell. Now, the problem that they have is that real estate is such a personal business. It just doesn't work like the travel agent, okay? Travel agent was supplanted by technology. And I will take it back just one step and say, if I'm driving, okay, so Uber and Lyft came in and disrupted an industry, but really what they did is they did empower drivers, right? So okay, they disrupted the taxi industry. Now, if I'm a driver and I'm going to either drive Lyft or Uber, does it matter to me that Uber is spending hundreds of millions on autonomous vehicles? Okay, they are literally going to try, while I'm driving Uber, I'm putting money in their pocket for the people that are developing technology to get rid of taxi drivers, to get rid of Uber drivers.
Well,
Does that sound familiar?
yeah, it's a really important concept. And you just covered like 3 giant concepts that you could literally have a webinar on each one of them. But said differently, every single real estate agent right now has a vote to make. And whether you realize it or not, you've been voting. In this industry, you vote with your pocketbook, meaning that you decide to pay money in the form of either cap or desk fee or transaction fee, you name it. Any way you slice it, we're all paying somebody. And usually it's a broker. Those monies are either used for enrichment, it's used for disruption, it's used for investment. It is what it is. Which brokerage house you're at is your vote on where you think the best place for the future of the real estate agent and industry is to be. When you pay your money to Keller Williams, just understand we've made our bet. Our bet is that the real estate agent is going to be side by side with the consumer. Our bet is the technology needs to enhance the real estate agent's life at no additional cost. It's a really big, important thing, right? That was one of our lines from the start, and we've stayed to it. And we believe that the real estate agent gets more human, more often with more people, we win. That's it. And so when you look up at those things and you realize that you were all making your votes, ask yourself, who are your competitors voting on? What are they saying with their dollars? I think it's a really important distinction to make. The other distinction is understand on a long enough timeline, and Tristan, you and I have spoken about this a bunch of times, the consumer always gets what they want. That's just something that always happens, especially in the kind of economic system that we run in the United States. So I don't think the consumer said, I want Amazon. I think what they said is, I want the products I want delivered to my house in a short period of time at the right price. What they got was Amazon. I don't think they said, I want Domino's. I think what they said is, I never want to have to call and check on a pizza again. What they got was the pizza tracker at Domino's. I don't think anyone said, gosh, what I want is an Acura to follow me around 24 hours a day. I don't think anyone said that. I think what they meant was, when I want an Acura to be here, I want them here. What they got was Uber. So what does the consumer want when it comes to our space? Well, I believe that they want a few really basic things. Number one, they want to look at less physical houses, but more of the right ones. Meaning they want you to have good information on what's on the market, and they want to look at less homes physically, but more of the right houses. I think COVID has hastened that, by the way. Number two, I still think they want to view the right piece of real estate in person because they want to see how the place smells. Call me a simpleton. I still believe people shop with their nose when they walk into a house the minute they walk in, and they still want a physical experience in a house. Number three, I think they want a more streamlined transaction, preferably done by their cell phone. It's why we built the consumer operating system, otherwise known as your KW app. And number four, I think they want the real estate agent in their life, but at the right place at the right time. And that's why all of the connective tissue between Command, the agent operating system, and the consumer operating system are so important. How they navigate the transaction, how they share information back and forth, and how we continue to add value, both on providing information on residential real estate in the form of like the monthly neighborhood nurture as an example on a monthly basis, and how we stay more likable. Because here's the thing, Tristan, and you and I are both kind of tech guys. The truth is, there's no algorithm for likability yet. Like, people do business with people they like, period. And so if you wanted to judge your day by the most simplistic standard, it's how many people like me more in the afternoon than liked me in the morning. And if one more person every day does, you're going to be okay. And if 3 people more every day do, you're going to be a capper or whatever you call it at your company. And if 50 people like you more in the morning or the afternoon, you're going to be a mega agent, and you can scale as big as you want. And all the technology is supposed to do is help you get to 1, 3, or 50. You choose your own adventure, and then the tech should scale to meet you. That's it.
Dude, it sounds like the that old book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It just goes back to that in its simplest form. And I love that you outlined it that way. So,
well, I get really frustrated when you talk to people, and everything naturally becomes more complex, and all success is found in simplicity. So anytime you don't understand what somebody is saying, it's probably because it's not worth understanding. Now, I know you're thinking that's so crazy. I'm not talking brain surgery. I'm talking residential real estate. Like, let's not forget, this is a business about people. It's a business about housing. It's a business about problems. And the truth is there's very few emergencies in residential real estate. And there's an awful lot of just people logic. And so I would beg you, if I was going to sit down today and figure out how to capture more market share at Keller Williams between now and the end of the year, here's what I would be doing. Number one, I'd look up and I would just start whiteboarding it. Make a list of every life event where this precipitates a move. Just start listing them, right? Then make a list of how are you showing up currently at those life events? Are you showing up physically? Are you showing up digitally? Are you not showing up at all? And then I would start asking the question, how do I become more likable by being around more of those life events and being the trusted source? Go through your data bank, print the thing out and make the little trust triangle. Just draw a triangle next to every person who you actually believes, thinks that you're authentic, has empathy, and would respect your logic when it comes to their life. And realize how few triangles you're drawing. And then set about tomorrow every day to add 3 new triangles to that list. And I truly believe 3 years from now, you look back and all of your wildest real estate dreams would have come true.
And I'll tell you that really answers on the nose the question I was going to ask, and that is how, what these are very different times. What advice do we have for our realtors right now to get more business? And one of the things you're talking about is yeah, there are life events that precipitate a move for sure. And right now we are in a life event that everyone will remember. And one of the things that I noticed is, and I put this challenge out to all the realtors, all the leaders that are on this webinar. Look at your cell phone and tell me who's texting to check in. Okay, whether it's just, we were talking about the eye care messages all the time, and now it's morphed back to a business message. So how's it going? You check in, and then also real estate needs. Okay, great. So on my phone, I have 2 vendors. I use a lot of vendors. I have 2 vendors that texted me and said, hey, how's it going? My chiropractor, hey, just checking in. Want to see how are you doing, right? I used to go once a week before COVID, right? Haven't been in a long time. Now they're open. But he didn't just text me when he was open. He also texted me in the middle of it, right? When he wasn't open. Hey, listen, I know we're not open. Can't come in and adjust you. How are you doing? This is a message that builds trust, right? So what can we do right now? Is it too late?
No, too late. I don't even think it's begun yet. I know that sounds crazy because in some places you're 19 weeks in, but let's be real about what's going on. When you start to look at the infection rates across the country, if you think care calls are out of style, look how many more people need caring for right now. The truth is the care call isn't passé. I still think you can be making plenty of those. And here's the other thing about some of the isolation that people are having right now is that you don't know when it's going to affect you. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like I'm tired at the end of the day and I get zoomed out some days and other days I feel great. And my emotions seem to be moving a little bit more higher and lower than they used to because I've had to change so much about my life. And change isn't easy, but it's necessity that's driving this change. But if you called every single person in your data bank a month ago, I bet you didn't talk to half of them. And so this idea that somehow calling isn't the thing, I still believe you got to call and check in with everybody. Number 2, I think you have to get really clear about the economic certainties of what's happening right now. Everyone wants this quote unquote thing to be over. It isn't. We still have 40 million people out of work. You got 4.7 million Americans that are in some form of forbearance. Like, these are giant numbers. There's a massive disconnect between what's happening on Wall Street and what's happening on Main Street. And I'm a Main Street guy. But you know what? The local mom and pop isn't represented on the Dow or the NASDAQ, which is why you can be at 27,000 there and look up and say, gosh, it doesn't feel that way in my town, USA. That's because it isn't. We got all kinds of small business owners that are struggling right now. There's so many things you can do for them. I mean, I'll just throw a few of them out. But like, have you called every small business that you used to frequent and simply asked them how they're doing? Say, hey, I used to come to your restaurant all the time. I know I haven't been coming in. How are you doing? And by the way, they're going to be honest and they're going to tell you, I'm having a hard time. And then what would be the human thing to do next? Well, let me ask you this. Do you think lead generation is unique to residential real estate? Do you think proper P&L management is unique to residential real estate? Do you think the consumer experience is unique to residential real estate? You guys have learned all those things because you're at KW and we're an educationally based company. Who's the MAPS coaching program for the local dry cleaners? Where does the salon owner go to get business consulting? And then look up and tell me that real estate agents can't be first responders. Because if you called every single salon owner that you know, you might be able to business coach them through this moment. I can't think of a better way to serve your constituents than that. How many of them then would rush towards you? What if the deal was this? Tell me about your business. Let me interview you, and I want to do it on Facebook. Let me expose your business to my Facebook people. Then I want to send out a mass email to all my people, and maybe you're going to do some offering. Then let's send out a mass text message for them, and let's do it monthly so that they can support your company because you're in my neighborhood. And in return, when this thing opens back up, I want to leave my 2-page real estate newsletter inside of your place of business once a month for the next 12 months. Guys, if you did that with 10 or 15 small businesses, you'd literally have your newsletter in every small business in town. And I don't see people making those calls. And I don't understand that. I really don't. I think that there's a moment here. Ask yourself this, make a list. What are all the pain points that you're having right now based on the changes happening? And then realize that those are the same problems that everybody else is dealing with. And then decide which of those problems you're going to be a part of solving. And then realize that's what the word fiduciary means.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, amazing advice, and great, way to take it off the map from, from my suggestion, look at your cell phone, look who's calling you, right? You can be the person calling them. But to, taking it off the map to ask that vendor, to do a business consult with that vendor. I do it all the time. I do it. I enjoy doing it. Sometimes it's friends and family. My nephew has a dental practice down the street. The principles work the same. I say to him, hey, I've only gotten 2 messages. One's from my chiropractor. Okay. Be the dentist that's sending all the text messages out to, right? And you stand out. I mean, it's so easy, right?
And there's so many cool touches you can make. Like I was talking to an agent in San Francisco the other day, a real high price point. She hired her photographer and they're doing portraits. She's sending her photographer. She stops by her customer SOI's house. The family lines up on the porch and she's doing professional photography, giving them these great family photos. Like that's such a no-brainer. I talked to Mr. Whatever It Takes. He's an agent in Scottsdale, and he's delivering buckets of microwave popcorn onto people's porches, along with a gift card for Amazon Prime and a box of jujubes or whatever it is. And he's literally saying movie night on me. Like these are the things, by the way, that people pick up and they just know you care. Like I guess we used to call all of that lead generation, and now you should just call it love. Because this is how you take care of other people in times like this. This is why Keller Williams shows up in a crisis, mainly because of the culture that we have. If you ask the question, how do I celebrate people and let them feel loved right now? The answer of how do I get more listings would already be solved.
Yep.
That's very true, man. I think here's the challenge for most agents with what you said, because it's true. It's that we think that we need to try to encompass a lot at one time. And then we forget that going in at such a small niche, like relationship at a time, is where the key is, right? And it just gets really distracting with so much information coming in. It's like, how do I do this all at once? Well, so what you said is key.
When it's not your fault, by the way, like, let me just tell you this. When I lay out that if one person every day likes you more, after 3 years, you'd be good. But if 3 people did, you'd be great. And if 50 people did, you'd own a mega team. Just understand that that's 100% accurate. But there's a large constituency of you that's saying that can't be right. And I get that. You know why it is? It's not your fault. There's 17 billion neurons in the part of your brain that governs these sort of decisions and actions and thoughts. And when I give you the most simple of equations, your brain pushes back and says, it can't be that easy. It can't be that easy because let's just be honest, if it was, then what's the reason you don't already have the success that you wanted? And then you're forced to look up and say, because I'm either A, doing the wrong things, or B, I'm too distracted, or it takes a heck of a lot of willpower to do all that. And you're forced to look at all of those other things that don't feel good in places that we don't talk about at parties. And I get that, but I want you to run towards that fire. I want you to run towards the fact that it is that simple. And if you're not getting the outcome that you desire, it's not because of complication. It's because your calendars, your daily lives have become pointed in the wrong direction to accomplish the goal. If the goal was sell more residential real estate. Here's the thing. I totally understand how that happens. I do. But ignoring the fact that it has happened is akin to letting it continue. At some point, we have to look up and we have to remind ourselves we got into this industry not to do things we don't enjoy. Like, how many of you, just raise your hand in your own house, like connect with me for a second. How many of you are trying every day to force yourself to do activities you don't like? If I could just make more cold calls today, just raise your hand and then realize that was not the dream that was residential real estate. As a matter of fact, there's a place where every day they'll make you wake up and do activities you don't like. It's called prison, and I don't advise anyone join it. It is not what real estate was supposed to be. This was supposed to be the place where anything you love could be enough as long as you did more of it. You love golf? Great. Do it 6 times a week with 3 strangers each time. You love bike riding? Great. Form the group that's going to bike ride. You like playing tennis? Awesome. Form the tennis group. Become mayor of Tennis Town. If trust is mainly built on apathy, logic, and shared experience, which we know it is, and we also know that if no matter what you love, there's another group of people that love the same thing, find what you love and just do more of it purposefully. And Paul just said it. I love talking to people about their business. He's a business consultant. He loves that. By the way, think of how many business professionals run towards him. And I get that. Tristan, you love technology and you love making people's lives better. That's why 130,000 people have joined his Facebook group. He is curating. He found a tribe. Make a list right now of the 3 things that you love doing. And then ask yourself, why aren't you doing them more often? And then ask yourself, if I was committed to doing them 3 times a week, how could I do them purposefully such that I get richer because of it? You answer that. That's why people say if you do what you love, you never work. And I'm here to tell you, you joined an industry based on doing what you love. Somehow you let yourself get convinced you had to do activities you don't. Throw that out and get back to doing what you love. And if you love people, you're going to be great.
I like Jason Unplugged. Who is this guy? I love this guy.
Right. No, it's phenomenal.
Good, bro. Wow.
I'm getting a lot of text messages from my agent friends and folks saying how phenomenal this is, for sure.
Thank you for saying that.
Jason, you got a comment here. I have to read it to you. It's from the Facebook, one of the Facebook groups I buzzed it in. Kelly Turbeville says, I love wine. I have a great wine club. So I'm like, that's perfect.
I tell you what, there's an agent in Northern California who absolutely loves wine too. And what she does every Thursday night, anyone that wants to come has to bring a bottle of wine and then be willing to stand up and tell the story. And she has clients and friends who they literally have set up their date night around her weekly thing. And you know what? She's really smart. Here's what she does. There's 3 touches of communication, once before the event, once during the event, and once after the event. And it happens every Thursday. She sends out the text reminding everyone that they're doing it to bring the wine and tell the story. Then she connects with them while they're there and she talks to them, and she is the mayor of Winetown. Then after, she curates and sends out a newsletter of all the different bottles of wine and then what the story was. And they love her for it. I got another guy in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's a kid. Well, I mean, I call him a kid. He's in his like late 20s, and he loves board games. I don't. I'm an adult, but he loves board games, Tristan. And so he found a local pub in downtown Grand Rapids, and they let him set up on 5 or 6 high top tables, 5 or 6 board games. And from 5 o'clock to 6 p.m. every Wednesday night, people wander by and they come in and they play a board game. And you know what? I wouldn't enjoy that. You know what else? This place is packed. People want to come in there and they want to play Clue. And after work, they stop for a cocktail and a game, and they love him for it. And you could keep going on. I got a woman in New Jersey. She loves cooking vegetarian style cuisine, and she thinks Americans eat terribly. Every Friday night, she invites a couple of customers over and she teaches them how to cook vegetarian. And you see lawyers and doctors chopping the onions, standing around her island, and these amazing smells are coming off her stove. And do you really think that she's cold calling in the evenings? No, she has become necessary and lovable for these people. There's an amazing woman who loves yoga. She does yoga in the park. It's the same thing. I met a woman who does this with shopping. Now this sounds like the seventh circle of hell to me, guys. I don't like shopping. But Wednesday mornings at 9 o'clock, her group of they meet in the center of the mall. They're the only people there, them and the walkers. They're in the mall at the Starbucks, and everyone talks about what they're going to go buy. And then they all break out into little micro groups and they go shopping for an hour. And then they come back at the end of the hour and they show each other what they bought. And that sounds awful to me. And you know what? She'll get 100 people that'll come out during the holiday season to do this. And here's why it all works. Because the secret to happiness is community. Like the Harvard Happiness Project proved this, that people who are part of vibrant communities, they live longer. They get generally more enjoyment out of life. They make more money. We can't help it. That's why the show alone works, because we watch people crumble after 66 days in the wilderness, because they need people. That's how we're hardwired. And real estate agents as first responders is about you becoming the mayor of these communities. And once you do that, ask this question. When you had to list your best friend's house and you went there, did it feel like you were selling them? No. You just went over to your best friend's house and you ended up doing some paperwork. When your best friend said they wanted to buy a house, did showing them homes on Saturday feel like a job or an inconvenience? No, it felt organic. And I guess what I'm telling you is that the top agents in this country would tell you that the vast majority of their sales feel that way. And that's often because they've built their databanks on shared experiences that they loved, and it becomes a community. Ask yourself this: am I the mayor of my real estate community, or am I simply a patron? And if you can say that you're the mayor, then you're doing great. And if you can't, then you got some work to do tomorrow.
Such a good point, man. Your thoughts and the words that you use revolve around, you know Seth Godin?
Sure.
So his latest book was This is Marketing. And what you said is exactly what he said in that whole book, which is we focus on the story we're telling, we focus on our tribe, on what we're great at, and then we focus on our tactics. Too often we focus on our tactics first and they don't fit.
Well, yeah, we do it without having a strategy, meaning, in the absence of strategy, every tactic looks like a good idea. And what happens to the residential real estate agent is you look up and you're like, I'm going to do more open houses. No, I got to do more Facebook ads. No, I got to do buyer seminars. No, I got to build the data bank. No, I got to stand outside the grocery store. I got to spend some money and get on the grocery carts. And they're all great ideas. There's not a single bad idea in the group. But without one strategy, how do you ever know if the tactics that you're rolling up are the right ones? Especially, by the way, in places that you would determine to be competitive or quote unquote luxury marketplaces. There has to be an overreaching strategy. And then all of the tactics have to roll up in it. And if you don't, you're going to realize that a higher educated consumer base is simply going to look for a different answer. And if I said to you in real estate, there's very few strategies. It's either number one, I'm going to get more out of my data bank and sphere of influence, or number two, I'm going to meet more strangers and over time aggregate them in. What would the other strategy be? A combination of those two things. Realtors try to do all three of those things at once. And that's why it often doesn't work out the way that they would like. And I would beg you to do it in this order. Number one, concentrate on your past clients first. Past clients, raise your hand if you have past clients that you haven't spoken to in the last 120 days. And then if your hand is up, realize that's a real problem, because past clients are the only thing you can't buy. You can buy tech and you can buy leads and you can buy other people's time and call them your assistant, but you can't buy past clients because it's built on a shared trust. Start with your past clients, get your arms around them. Then get the sphere of influence immediately. This is everybody else who knows you, like you, friend, family, relative, who's not a past client yet. Pour into them. That, by the way, might be enough for you to never have to look anywhere else. And if you've maximized that opportunity, then go into the third one, which is how do I get more people into my data bank? And then how do I follow up with those people with frequency and intensity? Guys, the questions are really simple. To be candid with you, I think the answers are almost as simple. Fight the urge to complicate this.
All right. There was a question, but you answered it. But I'm going to ask it to you anyway, Jason, just in case you have a different answer. It's from Anonymous. It says, I love the idea of doing what you love and becoming the mayor of the events, but how do you incorporate real estate into the conversation or into the event?
I think it's a great question. I think it's how you do the event. And the litmus test that I use for the event, however you're doing it, is, did I make it easier or better for everybody else? See, that's the key. So let me give you an example. If I was doing tennis, like if I love tennis, the first thing that I would do is I would get a list together of people I don't know. I would only play with strangers. And you're going to say, well, I don't know any. And I would say, yeah, that's why we call them strangers. That said, here's how you find them. You call everybody you do know. And you say to them, I used to love playing tennis. I haven't played in a while. Who do you know that I need to know that also wants to play? Then you need to call that group of people. And I don't care if you're starting with 6 or 7 or 10, it'll grow. Then there would be a touch prior to the event. Here's where we're playing. And I would be really clear. Don't worry about bringing water. I'm taking care of it. Don't worry about snacks. I got that. Don't worry about bringing tennis balls. I'm going to take care of that too. And don't worry about getting to the court early. I've got that all covered. You've instantly made the event easier and better for everybody else. Now, the water bottles would have my real estate logo on them. The tennis balls would have my real estate logo on them. I'd get my admin there an hour early, and on the chain link fence, she'd be putting up a sign for my real estate company. My t-shirt would probably say my real estate company. I'd be doing soft product placement branding. Then they come to the event, and I would just make sure everybody has a good time. I'd be playing and I'd be having fun because that's necessary for them to see that you're part of the tribe, and I'd be curating the experience. Then at the end, I would be sending out an update. Here's Nikki beat Georgia, Sally broke her ankle, she's out, it's sad, and Samantha won her doubles tournament. And at the bottom, it would be brought to you by the real estate company. And I gotta tell you, if that's all you did and you formed a relationship, you wouldn't have to incorporate real estate. It would be naturally incorporated. And here's why. Because you're the brand. You see, that's what's different about our industry than everything else. People do business with you because people do business they like. They're all going to know you're a real estate agent. The life events are happening to them regardless of whether they're playing tennis with you or not. And if you got together once a week to play, you couldn't help but talk during it. And if you let all of those things work for you, it's the perfect stew that over time will have the greatest flavor.
And that you
just come up with that, because that was good, dude.
I may have done a little preparing for this webinar. I didn't know I was.
That was good. I love that one. You better use that one again, because that was good.
You know what, Jason is while he's teaching it, part of what he's teaching is make it fun. And if you watch this, you can see Jason's making it fun.
You got it.
For sure. But, and I get the point that I'm glad you asked the interest, and we'll switch too, because I see we're getting a little late on time, but, and I want to ask Jason about more specifics about Command and Tech, because that's really your thanks so much for making this a relationship centric thing, because people that talk all tech have missed the point, because the technology needs to do that. But I want to just 1 minute dive on that question, because I do see some people that, they're highly social, so they're making those connections. And there's that one little piece where they don't make the purposeful ask and I appreciate the soft sell. And one of the things that I would do is I would make sure that just like Jason said, he prepared for this webinar. See, he's not reading off a teleprompter. Okay. So it's natural, but he is prepared. Okay. So one of the things that I would say is know your local market, so that when you're playing tennis and you've got the towel and you've got all the logos, they go like, hey, Jason, so by the way, what's going on in Santa Monica? That you have an answer for that. What's going on in real estate? Be ready for that answer. Well, let me tell you, we're at historically low interest rates. And then I always follow up with, 1986 was the peak at so you really, a couple of little points. So like, wow, it's not just a statement. He really knows. Am I on the right track there?
You're 100% right. And I call them Lego pieces. And I think you only need to have 5 or 6 Lego pieces at any given time. Meaning, what am I going to be able to riff on for 2 minutes about our industry for anybody that asks? Number one, it always has to be about your local market. Real estate is a local business by local relationships. And so you need to know what's going on hyper locally. Number two, you have to know what's going on with interest rates because people don't buy houses anymore. They buy payments. It's just like with cars. So if you don't know what's going on with rates, you don't have any idea what the payment is going to be. And number three, you have to understand on a macro level enough of what's happening in the news that day. Here's the way that I do it. Every morning I start my day on CNBC. Whether you like the station or not isn't the point. They have a real estate section. I'm always looking for the one or two national headlines that have to do with residential real estate. Number two, I think you have to check our trade publications and the one that's going on. You have to know what's happening in our industry. And number three, the MLS isn't a tool that you use when someone wants to buy or sell. It's your connection to the local real estate markets, meaning your day needs to begin with the MLS on the markets that you're tracking. If you don't have yourself set up on a couple of auto searches to make you smarter before you ever get out of bed in the morning, then how do you intend to make anybody else smarter? That would be, it's akin to having a financial advisor and you say, what's going on in the market? And they're like, I don't know. The market, like it's a real problem. And I also think, Paul, that goes back to follow-up. There's only a few things you get to decide in real estate. Who you follow up with and by what frequency and what intensity. That's really it. The consumer makes all the rest of the decisions. They decide when they're going to move, who they're going to use, what they're going to pay, how much they're going to spend, who's going to do the title, who's going to do the mortgage. The only thing you get to decide is who am I following up with and with what frequency and what intensity. So if you're going to become the mayor of Tennistown, which I love, you're going to be crushing it on the fun side. But then in the background, every single person within my earshot, at least once a month, you have to be sending hyper-local real estate information. Like you have to be sending like local real estate information every month. We think of that as the monthly neighborhood nurture. And there's only a few reasons why someone wouldn't use it. You know, they'll say, well, it's not 100% accurate. And here's the thing, like show me anything that is 100% accurate. I don't think anyone's looking for 100% accuracy in anything. I think people want to look at real estate information that makes them a little bit smarter about their area. Whether or not their area is this, or whether or not it's off by a decimal point. I wouldn't get hung up on perfection because the American populace seems to love looking at real estate. They just do. I think if you sent that once a month and then you simply set up a smart plan for the quarterly phone call, you'd be a million miles ahead of where you are right now. That's everybody.
And I'm going to say this. You know, some folks have an aversion to technology, or they're going to have their assistant do the technology, and to the leaders and when I say leaders, okay, yes, I am talking about team leaders. Yes, I am talking about OPs, but I'm talking about what Jason said as being the mayor of your micro market. That's being a leader. Okay.
Well, I don't really, yes. Here's the thing though, like
opportunity.
Well, you said people they're going to say they have an aversion to technology. And I think it's said a touch differently. I think they have an aversion to new technology.
Yeah.
Like unless you've made the decision to take your clothes down to the stream and beat them clean, you love technology. It turns out you love washing machines. And like, unless you're using smoke signals, you love this technology. It's called a cell phone. And unless you're still taking the donkey to work in the morning, as opposed to the horsepower in your Mustang, you love that technology too. You just don't like new technology that you don't know how to use.
Correct.
And by the way, me neither. You're probably different than me though. When your cell phone gets updated and you open your camera and it wants you to read 11 things, you probably read them all to understand the new functionality. Not me. I'm just like, I just want to take a picture the old way. Just show me the old way. By the way, that's just people. Leaders are being willing to understand how people are and what your natural behavioral tendency is, and then ask a different question, which is, who do I need to be? Not who am I, but who do I need to be? And who you need to be, if you're going to inspire, is someone that's willing to stand in the gaps that other people are. And the gaps, when we talk about technology, is having the courage to learn a new technology, and that's a gap. Number two, it's having the courage or being willing to stand up and defend the technology. I was talking to an agent the other day, and she said, I love our consumer app, but I got feedback. A couple of my customers, they liked the other one that they were using. It started with a Z back. And I said, cool, can I say it to you different? And she said, sure. What if they said to you, I really love Janet over at Century 21. She's just great. I really like her. I'm not going to change agents. Would you just say, okay, I totally understand. I really wish you the best and your old real estate agent. I hope everything works out. No, you would say, well, I totally get that, but let me tell you all the reasons why I want to be your real estate agent of choice. You're willing to fight for it because you're fighting for yourself and you're comfortable talking about you. I want you to get comfortable enough talking about our app that you'd be willing to fight for it. Because the truth is, a lot of people, they use the technology they're comfortable with, whether it's better or not. How many of you have stayed with an outdated cell phone just because the hassle of moving to a new one is a hassle, even if the technology was better? And that's the difference between leading and following. The truth is, a lot of us, we succeed throughout life. And then you look up and really realize that leading is a lot different than succeeding. Sometimes with leading, you actually have to slow down and let everybody else catch up. You have to be willing to run towards the fire on conversations you otherwise wouldn't like to have. And you have to look up at your skills and then pick the ones you might not have and determine whether or not you need to build those to get through the next generation of whatever we're dealing with. And I tell you what, this COVID thing for me, someone asked me the other day, so like, what's the biggest leadership lesson you learned? And I said, there was two types of leaders. I think crisis reveals character. And I've seen two distinct types of leaders during this crisis. The kind that's made no change and the kind that's looked up and been willing to change anything. And I'm attracted to that kind. Here's what I believe. If you haven't gotten your people together and set a 90-day vision of what it's going to take to get through these unparalleled times, then you're just hoping everyone gets through it. And I'm telling you, set the vision, then meet with everybody as a group and get group buy-in. Then start meeting with individuals and talk about whatever the new tasks are you're going to need to have to conquer this new vision over the next 90 days. And then be willing to hold everybody accountable. I heard that and my head exploded. And I ran back to my company here, my department at KWRI. That's exactly what I did. And then you know what Gary Keller told me next? He said, great, now I need you to go home and cast a 90-day vision for your family. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, you're willing to go cast a new 90-day vision for your company, but you don't think there's as much uncertainty around the home as there is around the office right now? That's the difference between COVID and all of the other different financial times that have changed. Think about that. What an opportunity we all have. If you're leading a business or you're leading a family right now, please go actually lead. If not, you don't know where you're going to end up.
And I have a challenge for all the people watching this. If you are a residential realtor, which is going to be the majority of folks, okay, and take Jason's challenge, and maybe you lead a big team. So you're going to run out and say, hey, what's the 90-day vision for my big team? Maybe you sell real estate on your own. Okay. So I challenge you, write a 90-day vision for your business right now. And I'm going to tell you who to send it to. If you're a Keller Williams agent, send it to your team leader. Okay. If you're not, send it to your office manager. You can lead from all layers of this. And if you don't know who else to send it to me. And anybody that sends me a 90-day vision, see, you would think like, oh, hey, I'm telling all these agents to send a business plan to their team leaders. Team leaders, they're going to get, they're going to hate me because they're going to get inundated. No, first of all, they're not going to get nearly as many as we would love for them to get, number one. And number two, even if they did, we would love it. So send them to your team leader, send them to your office manager, and send them to me. And I promise you, send me your 90-day vision. I will comment and say, how are we going to hold you accountable to this? And that will create your future. That's another fabulous idea.
It's an absolute no-brainer. And in our world, we have these things called 30, 60, 90s. And the mistake, and by the way, if you don't know what that is, it's when the mistake people make is they think it's just for new hires. Meaning when I hire somebody, I'm going to lay out their 30-day plan, their 60-day plan, and their 90-day plan. And what it is you just list the big rocks. What are the top 20% we're going to get done in 30 days? What are the things that really matter in 60 days? What are the things that really matter in 90 days? But you know what? 30, 60, 90s aren't just for new hires. It's anytime you fundamentally need to change the vision or the direction of what it is that you're doing. And so what a great opportunity. Come up with the business plan, make it 30, 60, 90 for every person, and then hold them accountable to it. I got one of these the other day in the email, and this person said, you know what? I'm totally stuck. I have no idea. And they asked me for help. And I wrote back, well, tell me about your business and tell me about your life. And I got all of this. And what I realized, I said, well, how many people do you have in your data bank that you haven't spoken to in the last 120 days? And she wrote back, most of them. And I said, cool, maybe your vision for the next 90 days is not even thinking about market share, but it's capturing mind share. 90 days from now, all of these people are going to think about you differently. How are they going to think about you? What are the words you'd want them to say? She said, well, I'd want them to think. And she started listing them. And I said, awesome, cool. So the strategy now for the next 90 days, the vision is we are going to capture mind share. Now, what are the tactics that roll up to it? And she came up with a million different ideas. And I said, great. Now let's just pick 3 of them. What are your top 3? She said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, let's force rank them. Let's just go through and rank them all. And before you know it, she ended up with 3 awesome tactics. People knew she cared. And one of those, she's in the luxury market. Average sales price is about $1.7 million. She's going to do 30 to 40 transactions a year. It's a giant business she's running.
Wow.
And one of them was she said, I need to make a hire. And I said, you know what? I think you're right. What's the hire? And she said, I need a new administrative person. And I said, well, do you? You're not having any problems getting through these 30 or 40 units. What if we hire a Care Bear instead? And she said, what? And I said, let's go hire a Care Bear. This person's only job is graded by how many people within your data bank like you more at the end of the day. How many more people can she make smile every day? And then those people attribute that smile to you, not her. That's the important part. They attribute it to you, not her. And she said, oh my gosh. And she ran out and she hired the Care Bear, which, by the way, there's 40+ million people out of work right now, and a lot of them are really talented. If you've been waiting to make a hire, there's some amazing people out there. And this Care Bear is calling and singing happy birthday to people on her behalf. This Care Bear is doing drop-bys for things in the houses. This Care Bear is bringing and dropping lunch off for her customers because they can't leave the house, just a surprise. You may look up and say, oh my gosh, I'm missing a Care Bear from my org chart. Great hire, by the way.
Dude, I think we could go for another day with you, man.
Yeah.
This is insane. We had a lot of other questions, but I know you're short on time, and we want to respect everybody's time here. Paul, any
You get invited back, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
invited back?
That's
If
a
you're willing to
no-brainer.
come back here.
It'd be an honor. I mean, what your region and the real estate agents in your community, both with Keller Williams and outside of Keller Williams, are so important. Because, look, as we know, you're in one of the most dynamic real estate markets in the United States. And what happens in your market kind of leads the way for the rest of the country. And I've been getting emails and stories about how your agents are showing up during this crisis. And I just want each and every one of you to know how grateful we are, Paul and Tristan, for everything that you and your market centers and your agents are doing for our community.
Thank you very much, Jason. And what Keller Williams could not have a better representative. If passion means anything, that is a superpower. But I know that in order to have that passion, Jason, any of us have to really believe truly in our heart, and I know you do. And it's based on facts. So absolutely love it. Yes, we are recording this. So we'll make sure that it's so phenomenal. We do these, we actually do two a week, but one like this and then one just on technology. But we post them. I'm going to make sure we get a lot of traction on this one, because the more people that see this, the better. This is much needed information right now. So really appreciate your time. Thank you.
I would love to come back. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, man. Appreciate your time. Thank you, bud.